Hello everybody, and welcome to Rest and Reason. I'm RP the Red Panda, and today we're going to be doing the Oath Fixed video. Now, if Oath really isn't your game, head over to this playlist and find all of my different fixed videos. Go let me know, do you agree with me, do you disagree with me, but ultimately just have fun enjoying my comments and hopefully enjoying some of my changes, and let me know how they work out for you down in the comments. Now, for this video, I base all of my fixes off of this video right here, Oath's Strengths and Weaknesses. That video explains why I both think this game is awesome, why I think it deserves to be fixed, but also why it has some clear weaknesses that needed to be fixed. So let's get right into those fixes now. My first fix is on the Imperial system. Now, originally, the Imperial system made the citizens feel like a totally different game than the other two players. I made this different. First off, the citizens will now have their own warbands. They can either choose to get some of their own warbands, some of the purple warbands from the Chancellor, or both, a combination of both. Now, why would they choose this, you might ask? Well, it all comes down to the new system for citizens of supply. The citizens are now going to work exactly like the exiles in supply. They're going to count their number of banners. They're going to do exactly what the exiles and put it exactly where the exiles would if they had that many banners. So whenever they choose to have their own warbands, they're going to lower their supply. Whenever they choose to have the Chancellor's warbands, they're going to lower the Chancellor's supply. So this is going to make the game a lot more independent for the citizens, while also still making it a really interesting balance between, do I want to be separate from the Empire while still being in the Empire? Do I want to be really, really close to the Empire and working directly with the Chancellor? Or do I want to be in the middle? It's all up to you. And this all helps so that the citizens can now own sites. The way that citizens own sites is in Imperial sites, places where there are Imperial warbands. Whoever has the majority will be the ruler of that site. So if you have 3 warbands and the Chancellor has 2 warbands on the site, then you are going to be in charge of that site. You rule that site. But if the Chancellor has 3 and you have 2, the Chancellor rules the site. This makes for an interesting area majority game inside of the bigger game of Oath. It also means that whenever those people get attacked, you now are all going to probably work together to keep this spot for the Empire, despite the fact that you might not want to because it's owned by the Chancellor and not by you. And finally, it makes it so that citizens can actually go for the most sites goal, which makes it so they don't have to go get the weird scepter thing. And that's all this weird thing. Because I remember originally the citizens, when they had the scepter, could do all sorts of random stuff. I took all of that away to make things simpler. So ultimately, all of these changes make the Imperial system simpler and more fun to play. Now, if you're enjoying this content, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button, hit that like button. Let us know that you're loving this content or that you just appreciated that somebody came on the internet, did all this work and tried it out. And hey, I might have failed, but I entertained you. So let's get right into my second change, which is on the campaign. Now, in the campaign, you can now choose targets, but your targets are limited. You can choose ruled sites, relics, and banners. You can no longer target the favor or the pawn of the people. This makes the game a little bit easier and more thematic. The second thing is you now have a way to offer surrender to the person you attack. Once you've paid, you can offer surrender. In fact, Imperial players have to offer other Imperial players the chance to surrender. Once surrender has been offered, the person can choose one of 3 ways to surrender. If the Chancellor attacks an exile, the exile can surrender by instantly becoming a citizen. This is a forced citizenship and makes the exile suddenly on the Chancellor's team. It will throw the game off, and the Chancellor might be quite surprised. The second is that they can surrender by total surrender. They can say, here, have all the targets, and if they give all the targets over, the other person has to accept it if they offered surrender. And then finally, there could be a partial surrender. And this is the one where both sides would have to negotiate and say, I'll give you this from the targets if you would allow me to keep this other thing. Now, the important thing here is that if they only had one target, you can't do a partial surrender because there isn't a way to tear that in half and give them half of it. So there's no way it would have to be total or it would have to be fight. So let's go into fighting. So first off, I made fighting a lot easier by making it so that all groups could ally with all other groups except those dirty, rotten, disgusting bandits. Nobody can join with them and get out of here. Ugh! Okay, anyway, so now that we've kicked out the bandits, everybody else can join with each other and play with each other and fight with each other. But when they do so, there are consequences, and it all uses the already existing exiling system. If you are a citizen fighting a citizen, the chancellor can choose whether or not he wants to kick out both of you, one of you, or none of you. If you are the chancellor attacking a citizen, the citizen is kicked out, but it's as if you, the chancellor, kicked them out. And then finally, if a citizen is attacking the chancellor, it is as if the citizen jumped out of the whole empire, and now they're going to have to pay the empire reparations for the warbands and things that were lost. So ultimately, it's freeing people to do what they want to do, to have more fun, to get that energy of, whoa, this just happened. How could that have happened? But it's still not adding many rules because it's all those rules that already existed that just weren't used that often. Now they're going to get used more. The next part is how I changed the combat system. Now the combat system is super simple. Both sides get dice for their favor. Then the defender gets bonus dice for the places that were attacked or the things that were attacked. Then both sides add up their warbands, they roll the dice, they add the dice to their warbands, and then the defender multiplies the dice by any multipliers they rolled. In the end, whoever has the most points wins. And if it's a tie, the defender wins. The defender still has a massive advantage in this system, but the attacker can easily figure out how much the defender has. The one thing the attacker can't calculate is how much the defender will have after all of the allies join, with all of the allies' favor and all of the allies' warbands. It can get really crazy. And with the defender, they might feel really confident, and then all of a sudden, everybody joins in against them because they're about to win. This opens up the game and makes it more free. However, you might be wondering, at the end of the battle, with all of this craziness of alliances, how the heck do we figure out where things can go? Well, first off, the person with the most warbands left in the victorious side is going to get to place warbands out and move warbands around inside of the targeted sites. When they do this, they will have to make sure to follow these rules. First, if there is an exile in a site, they will have to move their things out. There can only be one exile warband color in a site. Second, if there are Imperial warbands, even just one color of Imperial warband, then only other Imperial warbands can be in that site. Now, if you're going first, that means you get to determine where all these warbands are going to go, which means the people after you are going to have to deal with the consequences of where you went. So you have an incentive in battles to bring the most warbands into the battle, but that also means you're risking more warbands and more death and more carnage. This brings a really interesting system, and in the end, makes for a really fascinating, fun, crazy game, but simpler and streamlined because you don't have all of these little rules about this guy can't ally with that guy, but he has to ally with that guy, and this thing, blah, blah, blah. And the defender works like this, but the attacker works. Everybody works the same. Everybody can kind of do about the same things. It just ends up having different consequences that are all based on rules that already exist. So if you're appreciating this content, please show your support by liking, subscribing, commenting, put it all down. Let us know how much you're loving this content, and make sure to hit that notification button so you never miss an episode. Finally, there are a few small things that I changed in the game. First, goal clarity. There are now only 4 ways that people can win. They can win by having the most sites, the most relics and banners, the people's favor, or the darkest secret. If they have one of those 4 things, they could possibly win. That means that you don't have to juggle I think there were 6 different goals in the original game. Most of this came from making the citizens able to own sites. It made it so they can actually go for owning the most sites instead of going for the weird scepter thing. Next is card availability. I've upped card availability by, first of all, making it so that how much you pay into the world deck is how much you're going to get out of the world deck. Now, that doesn't count modifiers, so if you get a discount, you're still going to get 4 cards out, and that's very clear in the rules. So, you're going to get more cards from the world deck. You also will get to play or keep 2 cards from the world deck, which means all of that luck is mitigated just a little bit. But you might be wondering, why would I ever go for the region discards? It's because now all the region discards are going to be face up, and you'll get to choose from your region discard whichever card you want. This means that you either have to go with the devil you know or the devil you don't, and it's always going to eat you up. And if you go for the world deck, you're going to have to discard cards that other people might want. Whereas if you go for one of the discards, you're just getting the one card that you wanted from that group. But maybe it's kind of a meh card. Do you risk it? Do you not? That's up to you. But now the world is freer, you have more fun, and you have a hand of cards to keep your cards in. This is very important. Instead of having face down advisors, you are now going to have cards in your hand that you use like a normal game. You're going to have 3 cards in your hand, 3 cards in your advisors. They're completely separate from each other. And if you take one from your hand, you can play it in your advisors, you can play it out there, but whatever you do, you get to choose what you do with your cards from your hand. And your advisors aren't going to get all bogged down, and you will be able to use those advisors to make this game asymmetric and make every faction just a little bit different from each other. Now, next up we have favor availability. Now you're going to be able to get favor a lot easier. First off, whenever you take a card from your hand or from one of the places and play it into either advisors or onto the site, onto the board, you are going to get a favor from that suit. This means that A, people won't forget because half the time they don't take favor. They always take favor if they play a card. Second, it means that there's more favor going around in the game and people can do things more freely and enjoy the game more easily, especially for new players. And for experienced players, it just means it's going to be that much harder because they're going to run out of favor that much quicker. The other way that favor is more available is you can now trade with the bank, the shared bank. If you trade 1 supply, you can get 1 favor from the shared bank. This helps negate the fact that sometimes people will delete so much favor from the game, there starts to almost run out of favor. Now you can bring favor back into the game. It also means that if you're not very lucky on having advisors that match the suits or having secrets, you can come back. You can mend your error. Whereas in the original game, if you didn't get enough secrets and you ran out of favor, you just kind of walked around hoping you could hopefully get some favor. Now favor is easier to get. But even though it's easier, it's also used in battle. So do you keep it and hoard it and pile it up so you can fight with more dice? Or do you use it for what it needs to be used for? That's why favor is more available. It makes it a harder puzzle. And there are many more changes I've made. Check out the rule book. It's linked below, and it will tell you all the changes that I've made, which leads me to the original score, which was a 3.67 out of 5. A silver recliner. Really good game, but it got really badly hit by 2 main things. It was so restricted and so complicated, and all of its little, this guy can do this, but this guy can't. All of those little tiny rules made it harder to enjoy the game. And it also made it harder for new players to come in and play the game and have fun with it. Now, with my fixes, that's changed. And we have a 4.26 out of 5, a golden recliner. I find this game with these changes really, really enjoyable. This makes the game more approachable, but ultimately makes the game more fun, because you are able to do what you want to do. You can ally with who you want to ally with. You can get favor more easily. You can get cards more easily. You can just enjoy the world of Oath with all of your vigor and have fun with it. And that's what games are about. But it is still a tight puzzle. It's still hard. It's still difficult to win this game. It's just not hard because the game has 1,000 ways to make it harder on you. It's hard because you have to keep track of 4 people, 4 goals, 12 different things going on all at once. Now, if you appreciated this content, please head over to our Patreon, support us, help us continue doing this. Even $1 a day helps keep this channel going. And as always, thank you so much for joining us today on Rest and Reason.